Mr. Speaker, my grandfather attended the recruitment office in Vancouver on February 11, 1943, enlisting at age 23, leaving behind his young wife and 3 kids, my father included. He found himself crossing the Atlantic to the UK for training and then on to North Africa and Italy, including his military service on June 9, 1945, the results of injuries sustained during the Italian campaign, which left him, according to the military, and I quote, unable to meet the required military physical standards, end quote. I remember as a child looking up to my grandfather as the closest thing to a superhero and noticing the severe scarring on his arm. Back then, as a 10-year-old, I thought that was pretty cool, and I asked my grandfather how many Nazis he killed. My grandfather, like many of his generation, never spoke about the war much, but his reaction, even all these years later, remains as vivid as ever. He turned to me, looking at me with such a quiet sadness in his eyes, a sadness shared by all those unfortunate enough to experience the horrors of war, but fortunate enough to return home. He said he signed up because he saw the aggression overseas. He knew that something had to be done, that his time was more about survival than killing, that he thought of his wife and boys constantly and wondered if he would ever hold them in his arms again, as opposed to the worn photograph he kept. He told me that war is a deadly combination of boredom and terror, comparing it to an out-of-control seesaw. Every day, even today, Mr. Speaker, I regret asking my grandfather that question, that I would diminish his service to a question of notches on his belt. But I did make a point subsequent to call him every Remembrance Day and thank him. It was never a long conversation, but an acknowledgement of the debt I owed him. After he passed away, I received his original military discharge certificate. Those, along with a picture of a young serviceman, are framed in my home. They allow me to share with my own children the stories my grandfather shared with me, and for them to understand that long before the world of iPods and digital downloads existed a world on the brink, that if not for the sacrifice of people like their own great-grandfathers, that perhaps the world would be a different place. So on this Remembrance Day, I would ask all of us to please acknowledge their efforts. Thank you.